Hi, welcome to this episode of Gridiron TV and week 6 of the British Universities League. We have a great show lined up for you this evening. As usual, I'm joined by Alan Price, and very shortly we will be introducing our latest member of our broadcast team here on Gridiron TV. We will also be bringing you some game footage from this weekend's games, as well as the rest of the action from the remaining fixtures.
That's right, and we'll be joined on the phone by the General Manager from the Merseyside Nighthawks, Ben Barker, as well as Robbie Paulin from the Highland Wildcats. But first, without further ado, please let us welcome our latest member of our broadcast team. He was picked in the 6th round of the 1999 NFL Draft. Played for the Wisconsin Badgers, the Philadelphia Eagles, the Oakland Raiders and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Mr. Sky Sports himself, Cecil Martin. Cecil, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you, my man. Thank you. Thank you. It's great to be here.
Cecil, we had you last on the show in March. Earlier this year, you were doing an FBU camp in Stirling. So what else have you been doing since the last time you were in the UK?
Well, you know, I've been doing a lot of speaking in high schools around the United States and around the UK and parts of Europe on college recruiting, making better choices and decisions, the importance of education, getting a chance to really promote the FBU brand and the NCSA brand. Got a chance to do some broadcasts on Sky and broadcast some NFL games. And other than that, you know, I've just been traveling a bit. And so it's just great to be here with you guys.
Mm-hmm. Great. Now, looking back at your career, as Stuart mentioned there, you were at Wisconsin. So what are your memories of playing for the Badgers, and what really stood out for you there?
Well, you know, you guys call it uni ball. You know, you guys call it uni out here. And so when I was at the University of Wisconsin, I was a student. You know, I was a student athlete, and my job was to go to class. My job was to play football and also, you know, to get better and in every way possible. And so my biggest memories, honestly, was number one, graduating from college, walking across that stage and grabbing that diploma, because that was the main reason I was there. And that's the one thing that sticks with me my entire life. It'll stick with all of these student athletes their entire life. And then with that, when we won the Rose Bowl, you know, they told us we were the worst team ever to represent the Big Ten in the Rose Bowl, and that we would get killed by UCLA, and we won that game. And incidentally, Wisconsin is going back to the Rose Bowl, and my former coach, Barry Alvarez, who is now the AD there, will be coaching in that game because of a big controversial leave of our former head coach going to Arkansas. So my memories is graduation and the Rose Bowl.
Excellent. But obviously we talked about you being drafted in the NFL draft, 1999. There was names such as Dante Culpepper in that draft as well. But you went to the Philadelphia Eagles. What was your initial thoughts on the Eagles drafting you?
Well, number one, there was another guy that came in with me. His name was Donovan McNabb. We were part of Andy Reid's first recruiting class, and if you guys watch the NFL, you know Andy Reid is one of the longest tenured coaches in the NFL right now, and the Eagles aren't doing that well, but they just won a big game last night. And so coming into the NFL and being drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles, my first thoughts was another great quarterback from back in the day, Randall Cunningham. And so that was really the only thing that I knew. And then other than that was that the Eagles came to Chicago and played in something called, it was a big game against the Chicago Bears when I was a kid. Other than that, I didn't know much about Philadelphia. All I knew is that I was going to get an opportunity to play for a team, and I was going to get a shot. And that's what I was given.
Now, whilst you're at the Eagles, let me ask you this. Who stood out as the number one guy who was the all-round athlete, all-round ball player that really stood above the rest?
You know, one I got to think about is Brian Dawkins. Brian Dawkins is a future Hall of Fame free safety that played the game with such intensity and passion that you could feel it as you watched him, and you can feel it as you were on the field with him. The other part about him is that he was our spiritual leader, that he was the kind of person that would bring everybody together, and we'd go over things like the importance of faith, you know, and believing in each other. And religion really is what he was really preaching and what he was really trying to get everyone to buy into from the standpoint of making the right choices and believing in each other and having faith in what's possible. And so guys like that, for me, what they did on the field as well as what they meant to the community off the field inspired me. And that's all around for me.
I mean, after 4 years at the Eagles, Cecil, you got free agency and you went to the Oakland Raiders. After spending 4 years building relationships on and off the field in Philadelphia, how does that affect you when you moved to Oakland?
Well, it was tough, guys. I mean, anyone who's, you know, gone from one team to another team, or if they're moving from the college team or the youth team to the uni team, anytime you're in a transition of organizations, it can be really tough. And with the Philadelphia Eagles, I was a 4-year starter. We weren't good when I first got there, and as a group, as a family, we built it to the point where we went to the playoffs 3 years in a row, in the NFC Championship game, to get to the Super Bowl 2 years in a row. So going over to the Raiders, it was really tough. A whole nother area of the United States. You know, the Philadelphia Eagles is on the East Coast and the Oakland Raiders on the West Coast. But the challenge and the excitement of being a part of a new team was there for me. And I got a chance to play with guys like Jerry Rice, Tim Brown, Romanowski, Woodson, you know, both Woodsons, Rod Woodson and Charles Woodson. And so being a part of this new regime of players with such experience was unbelievable. And so it was tough in one instance, but it was a blessing in a whole nother.
Then you moved to the Buccaneers afterwards as well. I know you've got quite fond memories of the Buccaneers. You know, again, you know, you're keen to go on one team and then straight to another team. Do you feel like you fitted in well to both these new teams, or did you find it difficult?
Well, again, it was difficult being cut. I mean, you know, that's the nature of the game. You know, everyone's going to hang it up at some point. And sometimes you might not make that team, or sometimes you might not get that starting job. But you come back and you keep working, and you keep grinding, and you keep doing the best that you can. So when I was unsuccessful in making the Oakland Raider team, when I got picked up by the Buccaneers, I was excited. And I had a renewed commitment and a renewed passion towards how I was going to approach making that team. And I went after it with everything I had. And you know what? I was unsuccessful. And John Gruden said, Cecil, I'm going to try to bring you back. And it was when Lynch had gotten hurt. And I had actually come in because Mike Allstott, another superstar, had gotten hurt. He said, I'd try to bring you back in. And he did. And when he brought me back in, I was further fueled to make that team. And so I worked my butt off. And the great thing is that I learned some valuable lessons from the fact that I was unsuccessful again. And what that meant for me was that it was time. It was time to move away from the game. And it was time to start working on what I would be doing for the rest of my life. And start using my education, something that would be with me for the rest of my life. And so the experience of playing college and playing pro, and the transitions and the tough times of getting cut, but the triumphs of knowing that I got an education and I got things to do moving forward was huge.
I mean, I think the message in that to any young viewers watching, any young players, is don't fear failure. You know, grasp it and try and make yourself a better person, a better player.
That's right. That's right. That's what it's all about.
Absolutely, and you mentioned there trying to look ahead of football and look beyond your career, and eventually a time had to come when you would have to step down and move back. What was that like? You must have been so committed to training all day, every day for these teams, to then go and retire and come away from it completely. How does that feel?
Well, it can be tough, you know. It can be very tough, especially when it's something you've done for so long. The good thing for me, and it's interesting, I keep bringing it back to this, is that the thing that helped me out a lot is not only did I have my education, but throughout my time in the NFL, I had worked on things like broadcasting. I had worked on things like understanding marketing. I had actually worked with an investment company and tried to learn, you know, not only what people are doing with my money, but how to understand the market in general. So to prepare myself, right, for life after football while working on life on the football field while I'm in football. And so it helped me out a lot, and it gave me a lot of options, but it's always tough. And I think for anyone out there who's had to hang them up, they know what I'm talking about, because it's no different playing in the NFL than when you guys got a chance to play, right? When you know, we were telling stories earlier on about our injuries, you know, the shoulder and the back and the this and the that. But we talk about those with a smile on our face because we love the game. We loved every part of it. And so it was tough, but having a plan afterwards made it easier.
Absolutely, it does. And you do a lot of work for the NCAA, or sorry, NSCA,
yes,
NCSA, beg pardon, on recruitment and also Football University. Does that help fill that void of football? Does that help you then go and give your stories and your encouragement to the youth players of tomorrow?
Oh yeah, because it's interesting coming into the UK and doing these broadcasts for the last 9 years. You know, I'm just learning and becoming a part of this football community that's been around here for a long time. And I see there being a lot of talent. And so when I'm traveling around the United States and I'm speaking to student athletes and parents on college recruiting, I remember what my story was. And my story was when I walked off the football field for the last time as a high school football player, I had no scholarship offers. Yet my potential, just like the young people I'm talking to, my potential and their potential today is unmeasuring. If they're willing to work as hard as they can, if they're willing to make better choices and decisions, if they're willing to embrace the importance of education and doing the right things. And so all of that, it fills a void. It actually helps me feel like the blessing that I received in getting a chance to continue to play is being validated through what I give back to the community and give back to these kids. And so whether it be here in the UK or back home, it's all about giving back. And so filling that void in that way is the best way.
Excellent, and it's good to hear. It's good to hear that indeed. Well,
yeah, now you did mention that you've been over here for a few years now, getting involved with the leagues and the teams. So we'd like to ask you a few questions on what you know about UK football.
Oh, you put me on the spot. Okay, okay.
We'll keep it easy, not too difficult. Okay, we'll just keep it high level. So let me ask if you know who the current national champions are.
The current national champions. Well, could it be the London Blitz?
He's absolutely spot on.
Boom, boom.
he knows his stuff. He knows his stuff. Where was the finals held last year?
Well, I might have had a little bit of help on this one, but it could have been a place called Sheffield.
Absolutely spot on, my friend.
Well, you know, we do the broadcast right there in London, so you know all those guys, the Blitz, the Warriors, they're right there.
They are, and they're a very good team as well.
Yeah.
Well, Cecil, you had the great opportunity to go up to Inverness at the weekend. We had the Wildcats event taking place for all the young kids involved. You were up there with Robbie Paulen. How did that go for yourselves?
It was great. You know, as I told you before, I've been doing a lot of traveling around the UK and around Europe. Really helping with grassroots development of football and really, you know, promoting the FBU brand and the camps that we're doing and really just to try to give back. And so we got a chance to go up to Inverness, right? The Highland Wildcats up there. First off, we had a session with a bunch of young kids. I mean, you're talking about 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, never been around football. And we did a training session with them with different stations and, you know, teaching them the fundamentals of the game. That was absolutely fun. We mixed in some kids that play flag football for the Highland Wildcats and actually play on their tackle league as well. And so these older kids who are part of the Highland Wildcats got a chance to mentor the younger kids, all while going through a bunch of stations of fundamentals. And then we mixed, and then we split the kids up, and then the older kids got a chance to be in a flag football league or go through a flag football competition. So it was absolutely fun. And the best part about it, again, was, you know, getting a chance to talk to the young kids, you know, and expose them to football, okay, but give them a message, you know, of encouragement of what it means to be the best that you can be and to make the right choices.
And Robbie's doing a fantastic job, isn't he, up in Inverness? He's getting these kids involved and he's really sort of getting the awareness from a young level.
Robbie Paulin and his staff, I'll say his staff, his friends, they have really committed themselves to that community and those teams out there. They really have. They do an absolutely great job of organizing. They do a great job of fundraising. They do a great job of really just helping those kids understand and feel like it is a family atmosphere and it is an outlet for them. That's not just about playing a sport. It's about being a part of a team and being a part of a family that you can count on. And I think that community, it's indicative of what that community is all about. And so it was a great time up there in Inverness. And yes, those guys are doing a great job.
Yeah, absolutely. He's so well known among youth football. And we actually managed to catch up with Robbie himself to talk about the event as well as really what's happening with youth football through the Wildcats Academy and everything, you know, in and around Inverness. So welcome to the show, Robbie.
No worries, thanks for having us on.
So tell us about the event that took place on Friday.
Yeah, I mean, basically it was part of our Blitz development program that we do. I've been doing this for, so I've been in this job for around about 6 years now, and we do it in the high schools. We take sessions, we take primary schools, we do in various different schools throughout Inverness. And this was basically a chance to kind of get all of our high school programs together to play some games. So we have 4 high school teams and they all played a little tournament. But what we decided to do was bring in some of the primary school kids as well from the Merseyside area for a little bit of a skill session with Cecil beforehand, and it worked out really well.
It's great to see different age levels working together there. How did the guys react to that kind of coaching?
I think it's good. It's a bit of a shock, but it's great for them, you know what I mean? Because it's something totally different to suddenly have what they've been learning in their schools shouted at them in an American voice. You know what I mean? That American accent always seems to make a big difference. And I think a lot of the kids, I mean, some of the primary school kids had barely even watched American football before, so they went away and researched all about Cecil and everything like this. And I think they realised that the amount of experience that he's got, the stuff that he does in his job with NCSA and FBU, it was just a great experience for them, you know, and they really sort of focused in. Merkinch is quite a sort of deprived area in Inverness, and instantly these kids were really focused. You know, a lot of these kids get in trouble quite a lot, but instantly they were just sort of focused because it was just something so different for them. You know, it was that kind of that culture shock that really kind of got them switched on and getting motivated to play it, you know.
So what are the next steps for you from here?
I mean, what we look to do from this, I mean, it's always important to get games. You know, I mean, it's really easy to sort of do practices in schools and sessions and things, and you do them week in, week out. But unless they've got something to aim for, you know, there's very little point. So the idea behind this, you know, to keep those games going with the high school kids especially, it's now trying to get them into our Wildcat squads. You know, they've done the sort of foundation stuff in their schools, playing different schools in the area, but now we really need to get them into the team. You know, it's not good enough just doing a taster session. You know, we've got to get them into that performance level sport. For the primary school kids, we're looking at doing a sort of small local primary school league with around about 6 teams. That's going to be starting in February next year. So hopefully that's going to kind of, you know, tie in with that. It's going to give these kids a bit of a boost, get them a bit more motivated to play in that. So for the high school kids, it's getting them into the Wildcats. Primary kids, now it's kind of getting them into sort of regular league games and sort of competitive play, just to kind of bring them on that little bit more.
Well, hopefully it all goes well. But looking nationally, how do you see the growth of the sport across the UK?
I mean, I think hopefully people, I mean, a lot of people are doing what we do here as well. I mean, I know that, you know, down south there's people going into schools, you know, there's people recruiting there, people putting on their own sort of local sort of things. And I think that's the way to go, because once we get to the stage where you've got Edinburgh playing Glasgow or Inverness playing Edinburgh, you know, you hope that you've got that level where kids have got a bit of experience behind them and it's not just purely development. And I think a lot of people are sort of cottoning on to that now. You know, they're getting involved with active schools, they're linking in with that to be able to recruit for their programme, but not just recruiting for their programme. Is doing that base work first, you know, actually in the schools, getting the kids interested, offering them something first. And I think that's a big key. And I think even at a national governing body level, you know, they're really sort of coming onto that now as well and realising that that's where it's got to start. You know, it can't just start cities playing cities. It's got to be, you know, that little bit of a sort of local level first, you know, because that's how all sports develop. You know, I would imagine, you know, that's sort of the idea. You play, you know, you have schools playing each other, then you get them into a city team of some kind, and then they start playing all over the country, you know, so that should be how the development's going, you know.
Well, it all sounds great, and hope everything goes well for you, Robbie. Thanks for joining us.
No, that's great. Thanks for having me on, and hopefully speak to you guys soon. Cheers.
A big thank you to Robbie Paulin for his interview there. Now, Cecil, you have a very amusing story for us, do you not? Tell us about your megabus story.
Wow, I got to tell you the megabus story. This was my first experience with Inverness, all right? My man, Robbie Paulen. Basically, I was at Explosion, which was Birmingham University, playing in a big game, the first game of the uni season. Went down there with Neil Reynolds, we filmed it and did the coin toss and you know, got around just like I usually do. And then at the end of the night, I jumped on a megabus en route to Inverness to be a part of their awards ceremony. Well, basically, needless to say, it was a 2 a.m. bus ride, and I went to sleep. And when I woke up, I thought I was in Inverness. I said, this is a very nice community. It was actually Aberdeen. Now, we had 2 hours basically before the event started. I jumped on a train. We got there about 15 minutes beforehand, did the event. It was unbelievable. But you know what? That's commitment. Commitment to being a part of something that's special for the kids. If you can make it happen, you make it happen. And we made it happen. But I don't know if I'm going to do the megabus again. But you know what? It was okay, though. The megabus was comfortable. I don't know if you guys have ever been on a megabus, but it was okay.
I've been on a bus once to London, and I tell you now, I would never do it again.
Oh, don't believe me. Megabus, you're all good with us.
With Gridiron TV now, we'll fly you up.
Okay. No, it was great, and it was a great event as well. But I had to tell that story because those guys do so much work, just like everybody involved with American football around the UK and working with kids. And when you're supporting individuals who are supporting kids and being there for kids, you can't help but try to make it happen. And I'm just glad we did. So thanks, guys.
Do you know what I enjoy about it, Cecil, as well? You talk about everybody around the UK. Now, there's not any major sponsorship or there's no major money in American football. But for some reason, people's commitment and people's enthusiasm just make it work.
Yes. That's exactly it. That's exactly it. Great point.
So well done, Robbie, and well done the gang at the Wildcats there. So moving into week 6 of the British Universities League. Again, unfortunately, the weather seen a few call-offs, but there was still plenty of action to be had. And Gridiron TV were in Newcastle at the weekend. Alan, you were there. How was the game for you?
Yeah, it was a really tough fought match, a very physical side. Obviously, Newcastle with a double wing, Bradford. Both teams having a couple of losses early on, so really looking to bounce back. So it was a really must-win game for both of them. A close fought match, you know, not a lot of scoring, a lot of back and forth, but a nice exciting twist on the end of the game there. It almost swung away from one of the teams, but we'll see in the highlights right now really what happened on the game.
Some great footage there from the Bradford Newcastle game. Alan, one part there that really stuck out for me, you talked about the double wing and how they come out either side, and you see number 87, very powerful runner. He managed to sort of negotiate his way through the Bradford defence as well. It worked a lot, but it didn't work sometimes as well. You have to really perfect that part of the game if you're playing double wing.
I mean, you can see that what they were trying to do, and if you get it right, it can be very confusing for a defence, and it can be very effective. If you don't get it right, you can kind of get it stifled. And you saw them trying to go up the middle there a few times, and then eventually they broke it out. Like I said, sometimes there was space, sometimes that guy just made space. So a really good day of him.
The thing I like about the entire thing is that all those kids were out there getting after it. You know, they were organized. I saw them making some big hits. It looked like they were having fun. You know, and you're right. Watching that big running back, you know, reminds me of a guy that I blocked for 3 out of his 4 years at Wisconsin named Ron Dane. He would go on to break the record for most yards rushed by running back in NCAA history and win the Heisman Trophy, given to the #1 football player. Well, what's interesting is he was 5'10", 265 pounds. Now, how much is that in stones?
I have no idea.
You can look at it about what, 16 stones, somewhere around there, maybe 18 stones. You know, that's a big boy. So when I saw a big boy running with the football, it reminded me of the Ron Dane days. But the best thing that I liked about it is that there's nothing like seeing guys out there in their uniform, playing the game, organized, and having fun and getting after it.
It is. And, you know, unfortunately, we've seen there yet again that the lack of referees that showed up, and you know, huge thanks to the guys who stood in, because without volunteers and without referees, these games just couldn't take place, and these guys stood in and apparently refed a really good game. So well done to those guys. So we'll come back and we'll have the rest of the results from the league for you. So moving to the North Eastern Conference, we have the York Centurions with a very narrow game, 6-12 loss to Carnegie. And we've got the Leeds Celtics, who overcame in a thrilling match there in Northumbria, 32-8 over the Mustangs. And our featured game was the Newcastle Raiders against the Bradford Bears, which ended up in a win to the Bears, 12-6. And the Sunderland Spartans and the Teesside Cougars fought a really close match here in Teesside, 26-24 it ended to the Sunderland Spartans.
And we have some big battles in the big Northwestern. We got Sheffield Sabres with a big win, 39-0 against the Bangor Mud Dogs. And then we got the Lancaster Bombers losing convincingly to the Derby Braves, 68-36. And then we got the Staffordshire Stallions losing a big one to the Manchester Tyrants, 20-0. And then the Huddersfield Hawks lose a close game to the Liverpool Fury, 34-32.
Now on to the MAC, and the Nemesis losing out to the Aces, so they continue rolling, 37 points to 6 victors there. And the Lions dominant as ever, 48-0 against the Wolves. NTU Renegades also shutting out the Falcons, 46-0 there. And Nottingham Outlaws winning against the Longhorns in a very close one here, just one score in it, 24 points to 16.
So moving to the South Western Athletic League, we look at the Welsh Bowl between Taranau Aberystwyth and Cardiff Cobras. That finished in just a safety, 2-0 ended there in the Welsh Bowl. And the Bath Colour Bees and the UW Bullets in a very close game, 21-20 ended to the Bath Colour Bees. And the Swansea Titans with a huge win over the Bath Spa Bulldogs, 54-16. And the huge game of the week here in this division was the Exeter Demons, 67-0 in a shutout to the Worcester Royals.
And then we had a couple games in the Thames Valley Conference. Southampton Stags win a big game, 41-6 over the OBU Panthers. And then we got the Solent Redhawks lose a big game, 6-12 to the Kingston Cougars.
And then finishing off in the SEC, and the Hurricanes still dominating, just like the Lions, winning 48 points to 6 against the KCL Regents. The UAA Pirates winning 25-12 with the Imperial Immortals. And the ARU Rhinos winning 24-18 over the Greenwich Mariners, so a surprise result for a few people out there. And then the Kent Falcons adding another shutout, 37-0 against the Essex Blades. We also give a mention to the games that didn't go ahead this week for a number of reasons. We had two up north, there's the Stirling Klansmen and the UWS Pyros, as well as the Predators and the Knights. We had the Durham Saints and the UH Sharks, and in the northwest, the Highland Warriors and the MMU Eagles. In the MAC, we lost one as the Coventry Jets and the Wolverhampton Wildcats couldn't play each other. And we also had the Westminster Dragons and LSPU Spartans. And we had one forfeit from the week as the Portsmouth Destroyers go ahead with a 1-0 victory against the Surrey Stingers.
And there were some big scores from the weekend there, Alan. Let's look at a few. Let's first off, Lancaster Bombers against the Derby Braves. Huge victory for the Derby Braves there.
Yeah, and we've said it in a few weeks past. There's some big scores where they get past 40, get past 50, get past 60, and you think, right, obviously the backups are getting in and they're having fun, like you said. And you know, all the pressure comes off you at that point. And then on the flip side, when you're in the losing aspect, it's never good to lose, but there's probably a point at which you can start to relax when you know you're probably not going to win the game, so you can then just start playing football, really.
When the usual teams have won at the weekend, your Loughborough Aces, your Hertfordshire Hurricanes, and the Birmingham Lions, again, another Saturday game that took place, and they were victorious in that one as well. But we look at Birmingham Lions, for instance, you know, they've been to the final so many times over the last few years. They lost to the Hertfordshire Hurricanes last year, a great game of football that we were there to witness and watch. How do you stop Birmingham? Simple question.
I mean, it's so difficult. You can watch film of them if you like. Yeah, they could probably even hand you a playbook, to be honest. But on the day, they're just so well drilled and so powerful. The guys work out during the week. They've been together for a number of years. They spend so much time together that they just know how to deal with the situation. I'm sure if you came across a way of stopping them, they'll probably just pick up something else, choose another play, and get past you that way. So it must be really difficult for coaches going up against them, seeing them on the schedule and thinking, right, we've really got to plan for this one.
I've gotten a chance to spend some time actually with the Birmingham Lions a bit, and you know, Wayne Hill up there, that head coach. I mean, he seems like a knowledgeable guy. Okay, and I think part of that knowledge also is what attracts so many kids to be a part of the team, because a lot of times here in the UK, kids are not playing football really until they get to uni. And I think that being a part of a team that has success like they do makes it easy for him to get kids to come out. But if they never played before, it really comes down to having a good coaching staff that's teaching fundamentals that allows your team to do well. So, you know, kudos and hat off to Wayne Hill and those guys over there.
What did you do then in NFL? If you, as an Eagle, the week before, you're preparing for a huge game against a divisional rival, say, you had to win this game. How then did the coaching staff break that up for you? How did you prepare?
Well, I mean, obviously we had practice, and so in the NFL, you know, I'll more bring it back to the college days, because a lot of these guys, they have to go to class. You know, I got a chance to talk to some of the guys on the phone today, and they were telling me, oh, you know, I'm studying right now. You know, how you doing, Cecil? And it's great to hear these kids doing that. Okay, so preparing for a game really entails that 2 o'clock to 6 o'clock period of time, and I'm sure with a lot of the uni teams, they have to figure out different practice schedules. But it's about putting that time in on the field, and then also putting that time in the film room, and then going out and then really repetition, you know, and then guys who are backups stepping up. But the preparation for us really entailed us getting in the film room and watching film, weightlifting, you know, getting the extra runs in, getting the conditioning in that you need in order to be ready for the next week, and then having good practices. And having good practices means going in there ready to get after it, you know, get after it in a way mentally and physically that will allow you to play well that particular week.
And we look at the NT Renegades again, another shout out for them. They're doing pretty well at the moment.
Yeah, definitely, and they're really competing well in that strong MAC conference. So we mentioned Birmingham, Loughborough, these teams, and it's a very strong division there, and you get a lot of players from there. You'll also see a lot of players from these kind of teams going into university trials next week in Loughborough. So the kind of guys that are going to step up to the next level. Yeah,
but again, another postponements. Again, I spoke to Andy Fuller a few weeks ago, and he says that we're not going to be delaying the final this year. Yep. So postponements will need to be honoured at some point. But the thing that gets me, we look at Stirling, brand new 4G pitch, it's called off again, weather-wise. There's just nothing, there's just no let-up for the universities.
It makes it so tough for them, because you get to this point and teams are playing 4 weeks back-to-back, or in some cases last year they were playing 2 games on the same day, splitting their squads and sending half to one game, half to another, which is a real nightmare, or even going even further and playing. You've only got time for one game, so you split it in 2, one half against one team and one half against the other team. So it really comes.
Last year, didn't we?
Yeah. So it comes down to how you want to plan and how you want to work with the other team to get this done. And I know all the coaches there, they want to get these games played. They don't want to have an empty schedule.
And the good thing we're seeing is teams, change venues. So they might be home one week, but they'll just tell me, so we'll play at yours because we can't play at ours. Which I think is a really good thing to do, because then you're talking about a huge backlog, which you just cannot have, given the fact that the Christmas break is coming up soon.
Yeah. And I would say this, I was around Stirling last year when those guys were getting ready for a huge game, and you could tell they were excited about it, and it came down to a decision being made that was higher than the players, that it was going to be canceled, but they involved the players. And I think that's another great thing about maybe what the university teams are doing, is that, there's a president of the club, and then there's guys who are taking leadership roles and being able to give their input. And I think that's key. They didn't end up playing the game because the weather was just going to be too bad for them, and I know how tough that must be for them. But at the same time, I do see that the league is trying to do the best that they can to make sure that these guys get a chance to compete.
And hopefully we won't see very many call-offs this weekend. Well, there's no games actually this weekend, is there? Because we're at the GB Trials this weekend, so there we go. But remember, the GB Trials will be taking place in Loughborough University this weekend, the 15th, 16th of December. And we will be there to film the games and get some great interviews for you, so keep an eye out for that show next week. But, that's a roundup, so don't go away. We'll be right back where we have the questions you asked Cecil earlier in the week. Hi and welcome back to Gridiron TV, and as we asked you last week to submit questions to our new presenter Cecil Martin. Cecil, we gave you a list of the questions. Do you want to pick out some of the ones that you thought you wanted to answer?
I will. Now the first one, and luckily, my man, these questions, they did not add where they're from, because I have a tough time pronouncing some of the UK names. But you guys are going to help me with that, right?
We will.
Okay. But the first question was a good one, and it was a couple of people, and they were similar. James E. Cotter and Rory Scurfield, and basically their questions were, where do you see football in the UK going in terms of development at the grassroots level, and what are my thoughts on the state of grassroots football in the UK? And is it as good as it can be, and can it improve? Well, number one, 100% it can improve. And where it's at right now is in a place where you have a lot of coaches that care about the game and that are promoting the game. And then you got guys like yourselves and myself. We're all in our own way adding something to the development of the game, which is getting kids to participate in it. And so with the coaches who are going to be coaching the young people to get better, and then other outlets promoting the game and the kids giving it a shot, I think that's going to allow the grassroots development of it to become a lot better. And from there, the talent level will become better. But at the end of the day, there are great athletes here. There are great athletes that, maybe aren't interested in some of the more popular sports. Some are interested in the more popular sports, but may look to give a shot to American football as another outlet. And so it's definitely growing, and it definitely has a lot more growing to do. And the biggest part of it is technique. And I think really that's what FBU is trying to bring to the UK, technique. Former NFL coaches, former NFL players to really teach the fundamentals of the game. And then allow them then from there to put the pads on and really improve.
And it's something we've really been screaming for many years.
Exactly. Then the other one, my friend, we got Adam Farrington. That's right. I got you. What are your thoughts on the potential NFL franchise in the UK coming? It's going to happen. It's going to happen. I believe it. I believe it's going to happen. Now, when it happens is the big question. And I don't think it's going to happen for a long time. But long time is all relative, right? And so who knows? Maybe 7 to 10 years. You know, maybe even 5 or 6 years. If you get a very ambitious entrepreneur who puts a group together that really wants to go after it, well, I think it's possible, and I think it's definitely going to be coming. So 7, 10, you know, who knows, maybe 6.
Do you think it'll be a new franchise, or do you think a franchise might move?
It's a great question. That's why you are the main presenter. Honestly, I can't say. I cannot say. It's more likely that a franchise from America would be interested enough to come over and reroute themselves. But who's to say, though, you know, that a group of like I said, good entrepreneurs or good individuals came together and said, you know what, we want to create our own grassroots grown individual franchise that comes out of us, comes out of what we want it to be, less, you know, coming from America. So it all depends, but I think it's more likely that a team would come from America. So, but who knows? Who knows? But that's a great question, Adam. Great question to you, big guy. David Bailiff.
Yeah, that's right.
That's the one, yep.
Bailiff, big Bailiff in the house. Who was the best coach you played for, and why was that? You know, I really got to start off with my high school coach. You know, rest his soul, he passed away a couple years ago, and actually while I was in the UK, Coach John Reel. He was the first teacher for me of football in the way in which it's supposed to be played. And so I'd have to say him. Because from there, Barry Alvarez, you know, he was a figurehead, but also spent time teaching what he wanted you to know. And he took time out for even guys that maybe weren't the superstars on the team. And that's what I was. I mean, I came in as a freshman and I redshirted. That means that I didn't play at all, and that gave me a year of development. And he spent time with me. And so I'll never forget that. And then his encouragement of what I could do and giving me a shot was big. But Andy Reid, though, my Eagles coach, you know, he taught the offense, you know, and he was methodical about how he taught it. He was methodical about how he put the game plan together. That's why he's been at the Eagles so long. That's why he went from being a quarterback coach for Brett Favre, skipping over the offensive coordinator route that most coaches have to go through in order to become a head coach, to come into the Eagles and have such success for so long. So I got to start with my high school coach more importantly, but I got to mention those other names because they were important to my development, and they allowed me to witness what it means to be a leader on a team.
And we got a lot of young coaches actually in the UK now, kind of learning their trade with the teams. What kind of things do you think stand out as a coach? What kind of personality traits really come through so that as a player you think, you know, I want to follow this guy, I want to learn from him?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's why you the other big guy in the group. See, no, honestly, you know what I would say the big thing to do for young coaches? Be yourself. Be yourself. Don't try to be somebody else, because when you love the game and you're teaching the game and you're putting your game plan together on how you want to approach going against this other team, when you put your staff together of guys who are going to coach your running backs and your receivers and be your offensive coordinator and your defensive coordinator, be yourself. Because I've gotten a chance to be around coaches like an Andy Reid who wasn't a rah-rah guy, yet he wins football games. But then I got a chance to be around a guy like Barry Alvarez who could give a pregame speech that'll get you fired and ready to run through a wall for him, right? But then at the same time, I got a chance to be around John Gruden, you know, when I was with the Buccaneers, and he would let a roar out. A roar before a game, or at halftime or a game, or the way he coached out on the field that would make you excited about playing for him. So I would say that they all had their own way and they were all successful. So be yourself as a young head coach, and then really study other coaches, study other philosophies, and continue to grow as the game evolves. Yeah, that's a good question. And then Don Wolves, head coach at Edmundston, that's the one. Edmundston, I got it right. I finally got one right. What's the number one thing holding UK athletes back from playing NCAA football? The biggest thing, honestly, is technique. And when I say technique, I mean that they're starting to play the game so late that by the time they reach a certain age, their academic eligibility and opportunity to enter the NCAA, because you are a student athlete in the NCAA, has left them without an opportunity to compete. but that's changing. And that's why the grassroots part of the questions that have come from here and the grassroots part of what a lot of coaches are doing all over the UK is so important.
How far do you think we're behind now? I mean, we see young guys like Alex Jenkins going there. We've got Boy Faulkner, we had on the Dan Faulkner interviewed last week. He's there now. We've got Elliot Hoyt at Boys Estate. How long before we start seeing 10, 20, 30 guys going to America?
I don't know if I can put a time frame on it. I will say this though, you know, with what FBU is doing over here, and I think what a lot of people who are involved in grassroots every day, front lines development of young people in the game of American football, it could be sooner than we think. You know, there could be a tipping point that happens because of people's passion for teaching the game, and teaching the game means teaching the game of life, right? And getting kids involved in it. That you know, you get an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old or a 13-year-old with a good 4 or 5 years of development. I mean, you know, who knows? Who knows? You know, and you put that number 20 or 30. I like to say, let's not put a number on it. You know, because really the nature of getting an opportunity to compete at the next level is being a student athlete. Because the important thing is that everyone is going to be a professional in something other than playing a sport. Yeah. And so if you can use sports as a vehicle to get to a college or a university, especially right here in the UK with all the great universities that are here and the great academic opportunities that they have, but then you couple that with a chance to maybe go over to America and then get an education from an academic institution of higher learning, a university, a college over there, man, there's no telling how many kids can take advantage of that. But more kids taking advantage of it right here is just as important as kids taking advantage of it overseas.
Absolutely. Well, again, thanks very much for your questions, and thanks to Cecil for answering them. So don't go away, we'll be right back. We'll be joined by Ben Parker for our interview. Hi, and welcome back. And before we are joined on the phone with Ben Barker, just to let you know, Ben Barker is Assistant General Manager at the Merseyside Nighthawks. He's been in the game for over 8 years, and 4 of them were playing with the Leeds Celtics at the university level, before going on to win Division 2 Brit Bowl with the Norwich Devils. He's currently a member of the GB Lions squad. So, Ben, thanks for joining us on Gridiron TV.
Thanks for having me on.
Well, Ben, you've been around football for the last 8 years. You recently just became sort of Assistant General Manager to the Merseyside Nighthawks, but you've been with the League Celtics, the current GB set-up as well as Team England Youth, and also an invitee of the NFL Europe programme as well.
That's right.
What got you into football, Ben, in the first instance?
Well, like most people, I think it was I was always a fan of watching the game, and luckily when I went to university at Leeds, they had a great setup down there. So that's really where my love started, at the college level, and then it really just grew there. Really had some good coaches when I lived back in Norfolk, and yeah, just year upon year, just kept playing it really.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you won the Division 2 title with the Norwich Devils. Is that kind of the highlight of your football career at the moment?
In terms of like at the end, the prize at the end of the season, it is, yeah. But I think my highlight would probably be still being a part of the GB senior squad.
Mm-hmm. And so, how's that going for you, the GB senior squad? I know the last time you were in European football, I believe, was the year before, and unfortunately, it didn't go too well, did it?
Yeah, well, I wasn't involved with the team that went out to Germany. The last I was involved was when we actually beat the French. So I still have fond memories of it. But it's going okay so far. We've got some camps, some dates set up in January, I think, where we're going to have some open trials again. So it's just getting down there. I travelled down with a Nighthawk as well, Joe Black. So we just keep on going down, plugging away, learning the playbook, and doing the best we can, really.
And it's always good to sort of measure your career by the fact that you've been selected for the Great Britain squad, and we actually have the Great Britain trials for the uni team coming up this weekend, which I think is a great move in the right direction.
I know, yeah. I'm actually, I'm kind of a part-time student, so I was trying to weasel my way into that team as well. But I'm too old. I'm 26. They won't let me do it. But yeah, it's definitely the sport seems to be going from strength to strength, and having this kind of, it's more of like a developmental squad into the senior team. It makes perfect sense to me, and yeah, I think it'll help the national team out really well.
Absolutely. I mean, let's go on to your general duties now as Assistant General Manager of the Merseyside Nighthawks. Now, there's 3 key dates coming up for you guys in the new year. On the 13th of January, you have your rookie trial. So obviously that's inviting down new players who want to be involved, and if anybody wants to be involved, how do they contact you guys?
Yeah, well, like we said, we've already had 2 rookie camps this year, and they were a huge success. So we thought we really should have another one after the Christmas, get the rookies down one more time. And the difference this time is they're going to be mixing with the returners as well. So if anybody wanted to find out any information about this, they can go to our website, which is merseyside.nighthawks.co.uk, find us on Facebook, or follow us on Twitter at Nighthawks_news, and they have all the information that you would need for those rookie trials.
I mean, even people who don't really want to play football but want to get involved in background and game day staff as well, I'm sure they're more than welcome as well, yeah?
Yeah, definitely. Like any team, we need statisticians, people to film the game day organisers, people who can speak properly. It's not just players that we're limiting it to, no.
No, that's brilliant. And let's go into another key date as well, the 20th of January. You've got a big social event coming up for the Nighthawks. It's the Sign-In Sunday. So do you want to explain to the viewers what Sign-In Sunday is, Ben?
Yeah, well, this is something I was actually a part of on a previous team I was with. I won't mention who it was, but it was a really good opportunity for the team to kind of mix with the community, fans, and also like potential sponsors, rookies, new, but it's just kind of everyone coming together. So what we're going to do is after that rookie event, a week later we got this signing Sunday. It's the same day as the AFC and NFC Championship, so it's another good excuse to watch some really good football. But the guys are going to come down, they're going to get their little signing bonus of some merchandise, sign their contracts. There's a little Nighthawks versus food challenge. It's all going on the 20th. It's going to be a good.
And we look to your final date, which is obviously Super Bowl Sunday. You've got a huge event. Is this a yearly event for you guys to get the local public involved in American football?
Yeah, well, like I assume for most teams, the Super Bowl is pretty much the biggest vehicle that we can use to drive it and really get good coverage of the sport by using the Super Bowl. So with our sponsors, Liverpool One Bridewell, we've been able to secure the whole venue for ourselves, and we're really targeting the people who come, just trying to get everyone we can down for pretty much the same as the 20th of January, just a really good event of football, food, offers, raffles, fun, meeting the team and everything, and it should be a good game, and hopefully my Ravens make it there, but it doesn't look too good.
It doesn't look too good, no, especially you lose to a third-string quarterback in the Steelers.
I know.
There you go. But let's look at last season for the Nighthawks. Unfortunately, 1-9. Which I've had personal experience playing against the Nighthawks when I played for the Edinburgh Wolves, but and you know, your team then was fantastic, but it seems to have sort of slid downhill a little bit. What kind of happened last year?
Well, the results would suggest that. I mean, the majority of people who stayed on from the year before last would argue, I'm one of them, we had a stronger team this year just gone than we did the year before, but we ended up with the worst record. You look at a few of those losses we had, and there was a point I think we lost about 3 games by a total combined of 9 points.
That's right.
It could have easily have been, say, 500 record as we are 1-9. It was unlucky, but that's the way it is. We've learned from it. We have it's a kind of silver lining. We've got some really good rookies that came through and got starting positions, and you see, it's another step along the way to getting back where we belong.
I mean, I speak to Gary Chopper Lee, a very good friend of mine, on a regular basis, and he seems to think there's big things coming for the Nighthawks this season.
Yeah, I mean, you just had to be at the AGM that we had and saw how many of these young guys were just chomping at the bit, trying to get a role in the team, trying to take it on to bigger and better things. And that's kind of what I've done in my role. It's just trying to be the best we can. We know we pay money towards this sport because we love it. We want to do as much as we can, take it as far as we can, really ride it till the wheels fall off. And it's nice seeing these young guys coming up in the club trying to do the exact same thing, knowing what they can offer to us and, you know, how we can all work together for that common goal.
Oh, you talk about youth getting involved in the game. How's your youth team, your youth setup going at the moment?
Our youth setup's going well. They're getting regularly, weekly, about 23, 25 kids down, and considering the weather we've been having, that is amazing to get that many kids. And considering they don't have any games planned, you can get 25 kids down week in and week out. It'll be a nice little feeder into the senior kid. There's some good kids down there as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as you say, it's difficult to get kids, you know, away from the PlayStations and the Xboxes and things like that. What are you doing to try and encourage the kids to come down and be involved with the Nighthawks? What is it you're doing? Well,
I think one of the main things is you got to let them just have a go. I mean, you could go out to schools and, flag football's a nice little one that you can get them involved in. A lot of it's word of mouth, but we're really... the social media and getting people through their friends is one of the angles that we're trying there. But like I say, you just got to make it fun, make it fresh, and luckily the coach we have for that is doing that really well.
Excellent. And obviously Big news coming from the Nighthawks this week, the birth of Gary's little one, Poppy.
I know. We've got to find another seat on the coach, I think.
It's fantastic news, and it certainly seems there's a lot of great things happening in Merseyside. And I know myself last year watching your results, and as you say, you lost out in a couple of points here and there. I kind of willed my way, kept on saying, I'm going to predict you for a win, and eventually got it right. And I kind of hope that next season they'll bring new hope for your team, and fingers crossed you can maybe make the playoffs and potentially a final as well. So again, anybody want to get involved in the Nighthawks, Ben, if you let our guys know, where can they contact you?
The three places are on our website at merseyside-nighthawks.co.uk. You can search us on Facebook, search for Merseyside Nighthawks, or follow us on Twitter at Nighthawks_news.
That's perfect. Ben, thanks very much for taking time out. I know you've been a busy man at the moment, but I appreciate it, and I'd like to wish all the Nighthawks and your youth squad all the very best for 2013.
Thanks for your time.
A big thank you to Ben Barker, and a big thank you to all our guests, Robbie Paulin, Ben Barker, and our main man, Cecil Martin. You'll be seeing more of Cecil Martin, certainly over the coming months and years as Gridiron TV progresses. But that's all we've got for tonight's show, and I'd like to thank you all for joining us again. If you want to get on the show, you want your team involved, please get in contact with us. We're on Facebook, just at Gridiron TV.
And follow us on Twitter at Gridiron_TV. That is at GRIDIRON_TV. And/or follow me on Twitter at Cecil Martin1. That is CECIL MARTIN, 1.
Yeah, and then you can also email us, as always, if you've got any questions about the show, or if you want to get involved and be part of the team, you can email us at info@gridirontv.co.uk.
Want to see what teams are in your area and all the previous shows and current shows, you can get us on our website at www.gridirontv.co.uk. But before we go, each week, Cecil is on, we're going to get you to pronounce a name of a town in the UK.
Thank you. Come on.
I've mastered Leicestershire.
Leicestershire? Yes.
Aberystwyth.
Say it again.
Aberystwyth.
Oh, Aberystwyth.
There you go. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us. Until next time, good night.
Good night.